There comes a moment in every life when a spark is ignited, when something stirs deep within, calling for transformation. It could be a restless heart longing for purpose, a weary soul tired of empty pursuits, or a mind searching for truth in a world full of confusion. Change begins with a single moment, but real, lasting change requires something deeper. It demands conviction, courage, and a foundation that cannot be shaken. The world offers many solutions, self-improvement plans, temporary fixes, and fleeting motivation, but they often leave us right where we started. True transformation is not found in human strength alone. It comes from something far greater, something unshakable, something that has stood the test of time. Real change begins when you are deeply convinced of the truth. Without conviction, change is nothing more than a fleeting desire, something that burns brightly for a moment, but quickly fades when difficulties arise. Conviction is what separates a passing thought from a life-altering decision. It is the unwavering belief that what you have discovered is not just good advice or an interesting perspective, but the undeniable truth that demands a response. Many people desire change. They want to break free from old habits, live with greater purpose, or find meaning in their struggles. But desire alone is not enough. Desire without conviction leads to frustration because it lacks the strength to endure hardship. Conviction is the internal fire that refuses to be extinguished, no matter how strong the opposition. It is what keeps a person moving forward when obstacles arise, when doubt creeps in, and when the world tries to pull them back into their old ways. True conviction is not based on emotions, because emotions are unreliable. They shift with circumstances, rise and fall with moods, and can be influenced by the opinions of others. If your desire to change is rooted in emotion, it will waver the moment you face resistance. But conviction is deeper than feelings. It is a firm, unshakable belief that stands strong regardless of how you feel in the moment. When you are truly convinced of something, no amount of criticism, rejection, or hardship can make you turn back. Consider the difference between someone who merely hopes to change and someone who is fully convinced that change is necessary. The person who hopes will move forward when conditions are favorable, but the moment difficulty arises, they will hesitate. They will question whether the effort is worth it. They will look for an easier way. But the person who is convinced does not hesitate. They do not second-guess their decision. They press on, knowing that turning back is not an option. This kind of conviction comes from a deep realization, an encounter with truth so powerful that it transforms how you see everything. It is like a light being turned on in a dark room. Before, you may have stumbled, unsure of where to go. But once the light is on, there is no question about what is real and what is not. You cannot deny what you now see clearly. When you are deeply convinced of the truth, it will shape the way you live. It will influence your decisions, your priorities, and your daily actions. Conviction is not something you turn on and off. It becomes part of who you are. It is the difference between someone who follows a belief when it is convenient and someone who stands firm, even when it costs them something. History is filled with people who changed the world because they were utterly convinced of what they believed. They did not follow popular opinion or wait for approval. They did not waver when opposition came. Instead, they stood firm because they knew they had found something worth living for, something worth sacrificing for. This kind of conviction is rare, but it is what makes the difference between a life of mediocrity and a life of lasting impact. Many people struggle with change because they lack this depth of conviction. They may want to do better, but they have not yet reached the point where they are absolutely convinced that they must. They see change as an option rather than a necessity. But real transformation happens when you move beyond wanting to change and reach the point where you cannot imagine staying the same. The world is filled with distractions that will try to weaken your conviction. Doubts will arise. People will question your decisions. Circumstances will test your resolve. But if your belief is strong, none of these things will shake you. You will stand firm, not because of your own strength, but because the truth you have embraced is greater than any challenge you will face. Conviction gives you clarity. It removes confusion and replaces it with purpose. When you are convinced of the truth, you no longer waste time debating whether you should take action. You simply do it. You no longer seek the approval of others. You walk forward with confidence. You no longer fear the cost of change. You embrace it, knowing that anything less is not an option. This is why true, lasting change begins with absolute conviction. It is not enough to admire an idea or be inspired by a message. you must be so deeply convinced that no circumstance, no criticism, and no difficulty can turn you back. Because when you are truly convinced, change is no longer a struggle, it becomes inevitable. Lasting transformation does not come by human effort alone, but by yielding to a higher power. Many people strive for change through sheer determination, relying on willpower to break old habits and establish new ones. They make resolutions, set goals, and push themselves forward, only to find that their strength is not enough. Over time, the struggle wears them down, and they return to the same patterns they once tried to escape. This cycle of effort and failure leads to frustration, discouragement, and eventually surrender. Not the kind of surrender that brings freedom, but the kind that gives up altogether. There is a reason why so many attempts at change fall short. When people rely on their own strength, they are limited by their weaknesses. No matter how determined they are, they will always encounter moments of exhaustion, moments of doubt, and moments when the weight of life feels too heavy to carry. Willpower can take a person only so far before it begins to fade. Even the strongest individuals reach their breaking point when they try to sustain change through effort alone. That is because real transformation is not a battle of human strength, but a process of surrendering to something greater. Surrender is not a sign of weakness. It is not about giving up or admitting defeat. Instead, it is about recognizing that lasting change requires more than personal effort. It requires a complete dependence on a power beyond oneself. When a person surrenders, they release control, allowing the force that is greater than their own limitations to guide, strengthen, and transform them from the inside out. This kind of surrender is not passive. It is an active choice to trust, to let go of self-reliance, and to embrace a new way of living. Many resist surrender because they believe it means losing their identity or freedom. They think that if they let go, they will lose themselves. But the truth is that surrender does not lead to loss. It leads to discovery. It is in surrender that people find who they were truly meant to be. It is in surrender that they experience peace, purpose, and strength beyond anything they could create on their own. When they stop striving and start yielding, they step into a transformation that is not only lasting, but also liberating. There is a peace that comes with surrender. The constant pressure to perform, to meet expectations, and to maintain control disappears. In its place is a quiet confidence, an unshakable assurance that they are no longer carrying the burden alone. The struggles that once seemed overwhelming no longer have the same power. The battles that once seemed impossible to win no longer feel hopeless. Because surrender is not about escaping struggle, but about gaining the strength to overcome it. People often resist this kind of surrender because they fear what it will require of them. They hold on to control, believing that if they let go, they will be led down a path they do not want to take. But surrender is not about losing control to something that will harm them. It is about placing their trust in something that knows what is best for them. It is about recognizing that their own wisdom is limited, their own strength is insufficient, and their own understanding is incomplete. When they surrender, they are no longer relying on themselves to figure everything out. Instead, they are placing their trust in a power that has already seen the path ahead. Surrender also removes fear. So many live in fear of failure, fear of the unknown, and fear of making the wrong decision. They hesitate, second-guess themselves, and remain trapped in indecision. But when they surrender, fear loses its grip. They no longer feel the need to control every outcome because they trust that the plan set before them is greater than anything they could orchestrate on their own. Those who surrender to a greater power do not live in a constant state of struggle. They do not rely on fleeting motivation or temporary bursts of determination. Instead, they are sustained by something unshakable. They walk with confidence, not because they have all the answers, but because they know they are not walking alone. They no longer fight to prove themselves because they understand that their transformation is not something they achieve, it is something they receive. The truth is that lasting change is not found in striving, but in surrender. People search for strength in themselves when the greatest strength is found in letting go. They fight for control when the greatest freedom is found in releasing it. They struggle to sustain change when the greatest transformation happens when they stop struggling. Because the moment they surrender, they stop relying on their own limited power and start tapping into something far greater. Change is not sustained through occasional bursts of inspiration, but through consistent, disciplined actions. Many people start strong, filled with excitement and motivation, believing that a single moment of decision will carry them through. But as time passes, enthusiasm fades, challenges arise, and they find themselves slipping back into old patterns. They wonder why change feels so difficult, why their initial passion is not enough to keep them going. The truth is that real transformation is not built on moments of inspiration, but on the small, daily choices that reinforce a new way of living. Discipline is what turns a desire for change into a lasting reality. It is not glamorous, and it is not always easy. It often feels repetitive, requiring effort even when emotions are not in alignment. But without discipline, even the strongest intentions will eventually fall apart. People who rely on motivation alone find themselves constantly searching for the next source of inspiration, hoping for another spark to reignite their commitment. But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. Discipline, however, remains steady, providing the foundation needed to sustain real change. Discipline is about consistency. It is about showing up every day, even when it feels inconvenient, even when progress seems slow, even when no one else is watching. The small, seemingly insignificant choices made in private are what shape a person's future. Those who wait until they feel like doing the right thing will always struggle with inconsistency. But those who choose to do what is right regardless of their emotions will build the habits that lead to lasting transformation. Many people think of discipline as restrictive, something that takes away their freedom. But in reality, discipline is what creates true freedom. Without it, people remain trapped in cycles of failure, controlled by their impulses and emotions. They find themselves unable to break free from destructive patterns, always intending to change but never able to sustain it. But when they embrace discipline, they gain control over their own lives. They no longer live according to their feelings in the moment, but according to the purpose they have committed to. Discipline also builds strength over time. At first, change feels difficult. Every step requires effort, and the temptation to quit is always present. But the more a person chooses discipline over convenience, the stronger they become. What once felt like a struggle eventually becomes second nature. Just as muscles grow through repeated use, inner strength is developed through consistent action. Each small victory, each choice to remain committed adds up over time until what once seemed impossible becomes a normal part of life. People often underestimate the power of small daily habits. They look for dramatic changes, expecting transformation to happen overnight. But real change is the result of countless small decisions made every single day. Choosing discipline in the small things prepares a person for the bigger challenges that will come. Those who are faithful in the small details of life will be able to sustain change when bigger obstacles arise. But those who neglect the small things will find themselves unprepared when difficulties test their commitment. One of the greatest challenges in maintaining discipline is the temptation to compromise. It often starts with small justifications, a skipped commitment, a decision to take an easier path, a moment of distraction. At first, it may not seem like a big deal, but over time, small compromises add up. What begins as a minor detour can eventually lead a person back to where they started, wondering how they lost their way. Discipline requires guarding against these small moments of compromise, recognizing that every choice either strengthens or weakens commitment. Another key to sustaining discipline is having a clear purpose. People who lack a strong reason for their commitment will struggle to remain disciplined when difficulties arise. But those who have a clear, unshakable purpose will find the strength to push through even when they feel like quitting. Purpose fuels perseverance. It reminds a person why they started in the first place and gives them the resolve to keep going when the path gets tough. There will always be obstacles that test discipline, moments of fatigue, distractions, opposition from others. But those who have developed the habit of consistency will not be easily shaken. They have built a foundation that can withstand challenges because their commitment is not based on feelings, but on a decision they made long before the struggle began. Sustaining real change is not about finding endless motivation. It is about choosing discipline day after day, even when no one is watching, even when progress feels slow, even when the temptation to quit is strong. Because in the end, true transformation is not the result of a single moment of inspiration, but the product of daily, disciplined choices that build a life of lasting change. True transformation lasts when it is driven by a purpose beyond personal gain. Many people seek change for themselves, to improve their lives, to achieve success, or to break free from destructive patterns. While these desires are not wrong, they often lack the depth needed to sustain long-term transformation. When change is solely about personal benefit, it becomes easy to give up when challenges arise. The moment the process becomes too difficult or the rewards take too long to appear, motivation fades and old habits resurface. But when change is connected to a greater mission, something beyond the self, it gains a strength that cannot be easily shaken. A mission greater than yourself provides clarity. It gives direction and removes confusion. When people lack a greater purpose, they drift from one goal to another. A mission greater than yourself provides clarity. It gives direction and removes confusion. When people lack a greater purpose, they drift from one goal to another, constantly seeking something that will give them lasting fulfillment. They may start strong, but without a deeper reason for their efforts, they quickly lose focus. However, those who understand that their transformation is part of something bigger than themselves do not waver when difficulties arise. They are not simply changing for their own sake. They are changing because their lives have meaning that extends beyond their personal desires. People who live with a mission greater than themselves are not easily discouraged by setbacks. They understand that their journey is not just about personal comfort or temporary success, but about making a lasting impact. They realize that their struggles, their victories, and even their failures serve a purpose that goes beyond their own lives. This perspective gives them the resilience to keep moving forward, even when progress seems slow or when obstacles seem insurmountable. When a person embraces a mission beyond themselves, their motivation is no longer dependent on how they feel in the moment. Feelings are unreliable. They change from day to day, influenced by circumstances and emotions, but purpose remains steady. It provides the anchor needed to endure hardship, rejection, and uncertainty. Those who live for something greater than themselves do not quit when things become difficult, because they know their efforts matter in ways they may not even fully understand. A greater mission also fuels perseverance. There will always be moments of exhaustion, moments when giving up seems easier than pressing forward. But those who are driven by something bigger than themselves do not rely on their own strength alone. They understand that their transformation is not just about them. It is about the lives they are meant to influence, the people they are called to help, and the legacy they are building. This knowledge gives them the endurance to push through challenges, knowing that their struggles have meaning beyond their immediate circumstances. Another key aspect of living for a mission greater than yourself is the shift in perspective it creates. When people focus solely on themselves, they are more likely to be discouraged by difficulties. They see obstacles as personal failures and hardships as unfair burdens. But when they view their journey through the lens of a greater purpose, they begin to see challenges differently. They understand that every struggle is an opportunity for growth, every setback a lesson, and every hardship a chance to develop the character needed to fulfill their mission. Those who live for a greater mission are also more likely to inspire and influence others. People are drawn to those who are driven by purpose. They see the passion, the determination, and the unwavering commitment, and they are encouraged to seek the same in their own lives. True transformation is never just about the individual experiencing it, it spreads. One life changed can lead to countless others being impacted. This ripple effect is one of the most powerful aspects of living with a mission beyond oneself. A mission greater than yourself also brings lasting fulfillment. Many chase after temporary success, thinking that once they reach a certain goal, they will finally feel satisfied. But success without purpose often leads to emptiness. People achieve what they thought would bring happiness, only to realize that something is still missing. However, when transformation is tied to a greater purpose, fulfillment is not dependent on external achievements. It comes from knowing that every step forward, every act of discipline, and every moment of perseverance is contributing to something meaningful. Living with a mission beyond yourself removes selfishness and replaces it with service. Instead of asking, how can I benefit from this, the focus shifts to how can I use what I have learned to help others. This shift changes everything. It removes the pressure to constantly seek personal validation and replaces it with the joy of making a difference. Those who embrace this mindset find that their struggles become lighter, their efforts more rewarding, and their lives more meaningful. Sustaining real change requires more than personal ambition. It requires a deep understanding that your transformation is not just about you. It is about the people you will impact, the legacy you will leave, and the purpose you were created to fulfill. Because when you live for something greater than yourself, you find a strength, a motivation, and a fulfillment that no temporary success could ever provide.